Hello again. Hope you're having a wonderful day. We're reading in the book of Matthew. We're ready to start chapter 18. We're reading, of course, for context and understanding what is occurring in the verses, the events that are occurring, how that applies to us, what that means to us in this day. So I'm going to start off reading chapter 18. Okay, book of Matthew, chapter 18. I'm going to start with verse 1 and read down through verse 6. At that time, the disciples came to Jesus, saying, "Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?" And calling to him a child, he put him in the midst of them and said, "Truly I say to you, unless you turn and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Whoever humbles himself like this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Whoever receives one such child in my name receives me. But whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him to have a great millstone fastened around his neck and to be thrown in the depth of the sea." So, here plainly, Jesus is instructing the disciples and us to be humble like a child, be willing to learn and grow into the kingdom of God, be willing to be humble and learn and grow, and not think too highly of ourselves, and admit that, hey, this has been a growing, learning process for me all my life, and I imagine I will always feel like I'm still learning more and growing more. I don't see an end to it, honestly, in this life, and that's fine. I need to grow and do better and get better all the time. We need to not think that we have it all and know it all, because the minute we do, we're going to learn a lesson. We're going to learn that we don't. I'm just saying, that's just the way it seems to go. And then whoever receives one such child in my name receives me. But whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him, to have a millstone around his neck and be thrown in the sea. Well, here, there's two such things here. One, there is an actual child, and you could say that that's true for an actual child. If you teach a child to sin and to do wrong, that's a horrible, terrible thing. And that should not happen. There's no reason to do that. Now, there are incidents where perhaps someone is honestly teaching their children how to act and behave, and they make a mistake because they themselves don't know better, and then they learn better, and then they teach their children better. You know what I mean. It's a correction type of thing. We go through that because when we're baptized, when we're saved and we're baptized, we change. We have repented. We change course in our lives, and we change the things we do. So then we teach our kids to also do differently. There's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly normal. So in that case, you would not receive punishment or feel bad about that. I mean, yeah, I admit as a human, we might feel bad about that, but if you don't know any better either, you're doing the best you can. So, but also there is a spiritual application of this. When someone becomes a Christian, sometimes it doesn't matter how old they are. They're still a new Christian. They're still a child spiritually. I was a child spiritually, actually, for partly when I was a child, and I think I was still spiritually a child until I got into my 20s, at least, probably mid to late 20s, when I really started feeling like I started to grow up some. And that's just the way it is. I felt like I was learning all the basics and trying to learn the basics and trying to figure out how all this works. So this here, I think, also applies to spiritual children. We shouldn't teach new Christians to do things wrong or to cause them to sin in other ways, because you can, I can't think of any of us normally doing this on purpose or anything, but still, there may be people who are mischievous or argumentative, and they like to tempt and cause other people to stumble and give them, cause them trouble. There are people, unfortunately, like that, and so this is definitely a woe to them, that they should not do that. All right, so now we're going to read verses 7 down to, just 7 through 9. Woe to the world for temptations to sin. Let me read that again. Woe to the world for temptations to sin, for it is necessary that temptations come, but woe to the one by whom the temptation comes. And you see, Jesus is continuing just what he was talking about above, about causing others to sin. Okay, so this is Jesus continuing in that same theme. Woe to the world for temptations to sin, for it is necessary that temptations come, but woe to the one by whom the temptation comes. And if your hand or your foot causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to enter life crippled or lame than with 2 hands or 2 feet to be thrown into the eternal fire. And if your eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. It is better for you to enter life with 1 eye than with 2 eyes to be thrown in the hell of fire. And part of this is a repeat of what Jesus has said before, but let's go back to verse 7. It is necessary that temptations come. There are temptations in this world. We will be tempted to do wrong. The reason it is necessary is for us to learn to withstand temptation, to become stronger in our faith, and to grow so that we do not fall prey to these temptations. And sometimes it takes a lot of failures before you get success. I'll just tell you, sometimes it does, but you have to keep getting yourself back up and trying to resist these temptations. And woe to the one by whom the temptation comes. Because if you're tempting other people to sin, and really, I think a lot of times people know they are. Now some people in the world, they don't realize they are. They don't realize that through their action or however they're acting, but it's because they don't know God. They don't have the same values that we do, and they don't realize that they are causing that issue. So we need to forgive them and move on, but still, I would not want to be causing other people to have temptations or causing them to be tempted to sin. And then Jesus kind of repeats what he has said before. This may not be word for word the same, but the effect and the intent is the same. If your hand or your foot causes you to sin, if your eye causes you to sin, it's better to be without those things than to be thrown into hell. And honestly, that's exactly right. He doesn't really intend or want you to cut your hand and your foot off or pluck your eye out, but he's saying we really need to resist these temptations, to stay away from these temptations, and not let ourselves be caused to sin. Guys especially understand the whole thing about the eye, because things catch our eye, and we have to teach ourselves not to do that, not to look, not to want to look, and it's a difficult thing, because we're geared a certain way, and we know we are, but we can control that. That's our choice. And then as far as your hand and your foot go, you can take those however you want. With your hand, you can actually commit evil with your hand in so many different ways. So if you're stealing or hurting others in some way, and the same with your foot, you could be hurting others, or you could just be going with others to do bad things. You can look at that a number of different ways. But regardless of how you look at it, Jesus is just saying he doesn't really want you to maim yourself. He's just saying that we need to remove the sin from our lives, and we need to stop falling prey to these temptations. And that's That's that whole bit that he's talking about there. We need to remove the sin from our lives. We need to quit falling for the temptations. So if what you're watching or listening to, anything like that, if that is giving you temptations, causing you to be tempted, making you, maybe not making you, but it's putting thoughts in your head, quit watching that. Quit watching that, quit reading that, quit listening to that. More and more, over time, you should move more and more away from things that cause you temptations. Further on in the epistles, we'll get to where Paul says, think on whatever is good, whatever is righteous, whatever, has good value to it. He says it much better than what I'm saying it right now. And that's what we need to do to remove that sin and remove those temptations from our life. We need to stop letting those things in, stop bringing those things in, as far as like what you look at, what you read, what you listen to, what you go to see, what maybe your foot is representative of what you travel to go see, or what we have to choose the right things, the good things, the things that are of God, and the things that are good and of value in the world. I mean, look at all the things God put on the earth that are wonderful. All of nature. If you wanted to go see the mountains, the canyons, and lakes and things like that, I mean, those are works of God that are well worth seeing and appreciating. And there's some things that people have created that are worth seeing. I mean, you talk about Mount Rushmore and different things, maybe the Eiffel Tower and things. There's nothing wrong with doing that either. That has its own merit. Maybe not as much merit as godly things, but still, it has its own merit. It's the things that are bad that lead you down the wrong path, that encourage you to do wrong things or put wrong thoughts in your head. And we know what a lot of those are. If you're watching shows or movies and they're giving you all kinds of ideas that you shouldn't have, well, that's something you should cut out. If you're reading books or magazines that are also giving you bad ideas, same thing goes. So that's what we need to do for that. Now, I have probably gone on long enough for this first part of chapter 18, so I'm going to stop here, and we'll come back and we'll continue with verse 10 in the next session. Okay? All right, so thank you very much for listening, and God bless you.